Hey there. Welcome to the Redirect Podcast. This is where we dive into real conversations, share stories, and just hang out talking about finding our purpose in retirement. We're glad you're along for the ride, and let's get into it. Curt, Dale, here we are again, back in the studio, ready to go. I am looking forward to our conversation. Today we're talking about reunions. What we think about them, examples we've had of them, what kind of benefit they play or don't play in lives, society, etc. And one of the things I think that started our conversation about this was, Curt, you recently went to a big reunion, right?
I did. Class of 75, celebrating our 50th year of leaving high school, the great Williamsville Senior High School South in Williamsville, New York.
Get down. So tell us about it. What was your experience like?
Well, it really started about a year ago. I was at my sister-in-law's surprise birthday party, and one of my classmates, who's also related to the family, is a cousin, came on up and said, "Hey, have you gotten the information about our 50th high school reunion?" I'm like, "No." So all of a sudden joined the Facebook page and started getting all that stuff. So it had been a year as far as planning, who's coming, what the event's going to look like. You had to pay by a certain day and all that stuff. I hadn't been to a reunion in a very long time. It was years ago. And so this idea of the 50th, it's like, yeah, that's a milestone. That's sort of a cool thing. And I'm like, why not? I have family still back in Buffalo, so I have the opportunity to connect that with my own family as well as
multi-purpose visit.
Yeah, maximize it, right? And then see what it's all about. And so I started talking to people about reunions. I'm like, so if we're all at that age, or at least I am, being 68. It's that 50th year, right? It's like, did you go? And some guys said, yeah, I went. And I said, well, what'd you like about it? Or what didn't you like about it? And they're like, I don't know, it was okay. I'm like, okay. And then I talked to somebody else, and I'm like, you going to your high school reunion? No. I have no desire to go to my high school reunion. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And so I found there was sort of like this love-hate relationship that was going on with people. Either you love it and you want to do it, or you don't want to do it. And I went in there with an open mind, and I'll be honest with you as well, since we are the Redirect Podcast, and a lot of my classmates are my age that are going through pre-retirement or retirement. I'm like, that would be really cool to be within that group of people and have conversations about what they're doing to apply it to what we're doing, right? So I did have a little bit of an agenda there, but I'll be honest with you, it was really great seeing people that I hadn't seen in years.
That's cool.
It was really great.
So let's talk about this love-hate idea for a second, because I think a lot of our audience is going to resonate with the idea that nobody's in the middle of the road on this. They either really enjoy it or they really don't enjoy it like at all. And so why do you think that is? Where are you on the love-hate idea? And let's focus first on high school reunions. Where are you on the love-hate idea? And tell us why.
Gosh, I thought long and hard about this when we were talking about doing this, and it was more of I didn't care that much. It's not that I hated it. Or I always loved the idea of reconnecting with people. I always enjoyed that. For me, in particular, high school reunions. If we're talking about high school reunions, I grew up in Chicago. 605 guys in my class.
In your class, not the school.
In my class, not the school. We had
that's a big school.
3,000 guys. And I left pretty quickly, like right after high school. I left town, so I never had all those connections that a lot of people had kept up with. And when there was an invitation came up, and there was no connection of alumni club or anything else afterwards. So my connections really happened in college. And I mean, the connections I kept probably, other than high school, it was more of the place where I worked in high school, and we stayed connected. So the high school itself, didn't provide that excitement. If I wanted to see I kept in touch with a couple of the people that I really wanted to keep in touch with as life goes. But I also left town, so I wasn't in the community anymore.
And so I'm curious, do you think that if you had to pick a side, you can't fall in the middle. There's a line in the middle. You got to fall towards love or hate. What we're talking about so far, are you a love side?
No, I'd be more on the love side just because I love reconnecting with people that I really want to be reconnected with.
Right.
And I think you step out and, again, the people I think about reconnecting with are more from college than in high school because it was so big, because, it was I was on the south side of Chicago, and left right afterwards. And when you don't stay in that environment and you really go away, I was looking forward. So it's not that I hated reunions. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't that important. I wasn't dying to find out what happened to all those guys that I was with in my class, 600 guys or so. And I will say this, my best friend, who I spent all my time with really much in high school, died. And, died in his 40s. And that connection wasn't there. And he would have stayed in Chicago. And he did stay in Chicago. But, didn't have that really serious connection that would have led to reconnecting with all my friends.
Yeah.
Or that I knew, because I had a lot of friends. It wasn't that, I had a great high school.
That's cool.
It wasn't a bad experience, which I think a lot of people back away from when they hear about reunions when they've had a bad experience. They don't want to go relive that.
Yeah, and I think that's what the psychology says is there's people who fall on the line of disliking or hating reunions. It is that negative experience that high school wasn't a deep social connection opportunity for them, and there's a natural pulling away of that.
And there's more than that. There's the aspect of, as you were sort of talking about, the influences of the past, right? Mm-hmm. Were you a popular person? Were you in cliques? Which, again, were words that I heard from people even at the reunion.
Yeah.
I said, where's this person? They didn't want to come back because they just figured everybody would be in cliques again. And I sort of thought about that, and I said, for myself, when I went there, it was a 3-day event, actually. Friday night, toured the high school, went to the high school football game, went to a brewery. Saturday night was the big event, a big dinner, and then Sunday morning was a brunch. All right. And, biggest attendance was at the school because that was free. All right. And we had over 100 people that were there for that. And I found myself gravitating to the people that I was closest to in high school. Now, that makes perfect sense. But somebody who may have had a bad experience looks at it as a clique. But that's where I had the relationship. And then the next night, I made it a point, or the next day, I made it a point that, okay, I visited with my core friends. Mm-hmm. Now I gotta find out other people. And I'd walk up to them, and we'd have some nice conversations. What's going on? So there's that component. Another component of the thing is that the comparison aspect that happens at the 50th reunion. And you hear people of, well, I've got 3 homes, I've been very successful, I'm a senior vice president, and then another person is like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And you sort of, I think that's another negative aspect, that people don't want to be judged when they come in, okay?
Yeah, so let me comment on that if I can, please. I think a lot of people, they drag their own negative self-talk into reunions, right? Because that's the opportunity to validate, which they don't want to do, right? I don't want to validate this negative self-talk. I should have been somewhere else in my career. I should have been somewhere else in life based on my pseudo potential, with air quotes, out of high school. I thought I'd be doing something different. And all in all, their life is good, right? Life is good. I'm a successful fill in the blank. I really like plumbing, hypothetically. Yeah. I'm a good plumber. I take pride in
wrong with that.
There's great pride to be had in that.
Especially today.
Yeah, but who loves the idea of going back to their high school reunion and saying, I really, really enjoy plumbing, amongst a bunch of architects and doctors?
Well, again, if you're allowing comparison to be a part of your life, well, then that's what you're going to think. But if you have a feeling of yourself and your self-worth is such, well, you are who you are.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect is reminiscing. There's memories that you have, hey, remember the time when, blah, 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 blah. And I have to admit, after hearing a lot of conversations, because I ask this, as you guys know, and I ask a lot of questions at times, and I was getting a feel from people that have been to it, like, give me your feeling. And I walked in with a mixed feeling, all right? And to say, I'm glad that I saw some people on the list that I wanted to reconnect with because they were good friends in high school, and I'd love to get to know them again and hope that we can go forward, right? Then the other part is, I didn't really think of comparison because I'm content with where my life is. Learned that from an episode. And then as far as the reminiscing thing, yes, there's a time for reminiscing, but I didn't want the whole conversation to be about back in high school. My point was, like Dale said, to reconnect with people that I spent potentially 12 years with, first grade through senior high school, that I chose to be my friend as opposed to my family members.
Some of the first relationship choices in your life.
Exactly. But they're immature.
Right.
All right. And so on here, I was choosing to find out where they are now. And the conversations that I had with people that were talking about where they are now and what they're doing, and not the basic stuff. I've been married. I have 5 kids and all this stuff. No, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because that to me is the opportunity to create a next connection level if it's meant to be. So I went in there leery. I went in there curious. I went in there excited. And as I said earlier, I was pleasantly surprised. The gals, and that's probably a problem why you don't have a high school reunion with a bunch of guys, because there were a lot of our female classmates that got and rallied behind this, and they did an outstanding job. It was so well done. It was a real friendly and warm and inviting experience, and kudos to that organizational effort, because that takes a lot of work, especially when you're pulling logistics from people potentially around the country.
Let me throw in, I was more excited when I got my 50th 8th grade reunion invitation.
That's crazy.
I've never heard of that.
That's insane.
Oh, yeah. So 200 kids, but it was male-female to the point. That was going to be more fun just because there were so many more memories in my grade school from K through 8, and that's the way it was on the south side of Chicago, and there were 200 of us, and for what reason? It was just, there were more funny stories. Books have been written about the south side of Chicago growing up, many, because it was all Catholic guys, and so was my high school, was all Catholic. I've kind of broke from that, but I know that in the high school reunion, there was going to be a mass the first night, and it was going to be all of that I truly kind of left from the south side of Chicago.
So did you go to the 8th grade reunion, Dale?
I could not. Because
that's a bummer. That would have been a great story.
Because I own my own business, and I could not that weekend.
You couldn't tell yourself to take time off to go to that?
I could not. I was growing a business, which in reality, got in the way a little bit of the high school one. I might have been a little bit more, but there were so many things going on, and I just had this whole mentality of, growing the business, and I'm not going to take time to have to go back to Chicago. Not that it's that far, but
right
to go back to this, I made a decision.
Yeah,
And but I will say, from the reunion standpoint, I did reconnect with a couple people that did end up going, and I reconnected with one guy in high school from another friend who I'd talked to who was going to the high school reunion, and we've kind of stayed connected again. I did make that connection, so
that's cool.
That's just interesting.
And another thing I want to bring up about the high school experience, right? I know this guy that I went from first grade through high school with, so I have that 12 years, as I mentioned earlier. Now, that's a long time, but then again, think about where we are at this point. Now, I'm sort of trying to be the psychologist of this whole thing, that when you're that young, do you really know what your identity is?
Oh, God, no.
No.
And if whatever idea you have of your identity, it's askew.
Right. And it changes.
Yeah.
Because, I want to get to be known by this group, so I might change myself. And you're experimenting, so to speak, right? So really in those formative years, which is your youth, you really don't have an identity. You're trying to figure it out, number one.
You're looking for identity amongst the community you're trying to build.
True. It's not your own identity. You want to match into it, right?
Yeah, what
Be
is
part
essentially
of it.
what is essentially a small group of people forms the identity of the individuals.
Right, and especially in high school, that could be very volatile.
Yeah.
All right.
Did those groups have names, by the way?
Yeah, I don't want to say any names. I don't
No,
want to
not people, but the
groups.
name of the group.
Oh yeah, we had the jocks. We had the
Go
smart
on.
kids. We had the sewer rats.
Yep.
You know, yeah, we had names. Yeah.
And but that's the identity.
Yeah.
I mean, those little groups had names.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that you were
Yeah.
part of or not.
And there was the music people and the theater people. Right. Yeah, all those types
The
of
band
things.
geeks.
And
Sorry, dude. It's okay. It's okay to call them band geeks. They claim that affectionately now.
Bob Kinkle, if you're listening, you're not a band geek. You're a very, very good musician.
But you used to be a band geek.
No.
That's
okay.
Cool. That's cool.
Since we're on this, we had the greasers, the socialites, the jocks. We had the hippies that were in the public school. See, we had so many different schools.
Yeah.
You know, and then oddly enough, and for us, everybody who was working in high school, you had your work group. I worked at a Jewel food store, and we were grocery guys.
Yeah.
So you had that group, which I'd probably say we stuck together more than anybody because we worked together. Yeah, which was that work group. But
how about
I
Jim?
find it's fascinating the names of the identity groups that
that
were available for us to choose to go into.
Well, how about Jim Stengel's Alley Boys?
The Alley Boys.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Cool.
Yes.
But boy,
True Sandlot stuff.
We will rejoin our conversation in just a moment. Thank you for listening to the Redirect Podcast. We appreciate your support. Do you love what you're hearing? Don't keep it to yourself. Follow the Redirect Podcast on Apple Podcast and Spotify and never miss an episode that inspires your next chapter in life's journey. While you're there, hit a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share your favorite episode with a friend who's ready for their own life pivot. And don't forget to join the conversation on Instagram at The Redirect Podcast. Comment, tag us, and let us know how you are redirecting your journey. Now let's get back to today's conversation. Okay, so that identity thing, we're figuring it out, right? Another component that I don't think that we're sound in at that time of our life is, what is a relationship? Oh, I need a date for the prom. Or I don't want to be the guy that doesn't have a girlfriend to go to the football game with. And there's always this pairings that's happened in high school, and it's sort of crazy. It's like a big soap opera because over a month or so, somebody could be shifting from 2 or 3 different boyfriend, girlfriends, whatever it might be. So there's a relationship development that is going on at that time that we are nowhere mature enough to really understand the impact of a meaningful relationship, right? So identity, relationship issues, and then the other aspect is the personal experiences of what we talked about beforehand. And that includes some things, unfortunately, like bullying, being made fun of, or having this reputation of something or representing something that really you're not. And those are the formative years where all of a sudden as a high school, it's like this big vortex of things going on that are fairly huge. Identity, relationship, as well as that feeling of myself that isn't really mature. It's so young and I'm trying to figure things out. So I can understand why high school could be a very traumatic time for many people because they were not, they just didn't know how to deal with it. And I get that.
I think in some regards that piece is tougher now than it used to be. And let me tell you why. And it's all social media based. Back in my day.
Oh, wow, you old guy.
Yeah. Back in
the young guy. Now we're going back.
Back in my day, if you mouthed off to somebody, you paid the consequences.
Yeah, it's 3:00 at behind the bleachers.
It
That's
would be
right.
physical.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't agree with what you said, so I'm going to beat it out of you.
Yeah.
And so you usually learn to keep your mouth shut until you were willing to pay the price for what you had to say.
Or be bold enough to stand up for what you stand for and just accept
That's what I mean.
whatever you're going to get. Yeah,
pay the price for what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Now, people can hide digitally behind a screen. I am 30 miles away from consequences. And so people...
And judge.
Yeah.
And judge.
Yeah. And so people are so willing to say so much and never really have to face the consequences of what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has a negative shaping of how bullying works. I think standing up to your bully is its own rite of passage that a lot of folks don't have to go through.
Yeah. And you know, and I've been thinking about what you just said, and I'm not a high school student right now, obviously, that it has got to be so much harder because you not only have what happens on the phone, but then you could see that person down the hall after that person said something, whatever it might be, and now you've got a double thing that you got to deal with, which I think makes it so much more intense.
Oh, yeah.
So much more intense. But I get it while people say, I love it or hate it.
Yeah.
All right. And so then I want to go a little deeper with you guys in that, okay, we talk about reunions and this happened to be high school. Well, let's talk about family reunions. Are family reunions viewed in the same light as a high school, college reunion?
I think any time that you're bringing people together, there's a reason why you're doing it. You know, you're or going to attend these. So in my existence, I still have my SIBS reunion, which is a Zoom call, which I have every month or two of all my brothers and sisters. And I get them together.
That's great.
And we tell, you know what? It's just like probably like a high school reunion.
How so?
Because we go back to all the memories. We'll get into something because I organize this, so I go around and have everybody. Well, I did this in the last month. I remember seeing Mac Murphy and you remember, and all of a sudden, and all of like Fran, my wife, kind of backs away because we go down this rabbit hole of all the memories. We bring back all the fun memories, and then I'm hearing stories I never heard before. So you're learning new things, you're reminiscing, and it's like my own little family reunion, and we haven't gotten into, you know, anything that was majorly dramatic yet. But we also get caught up, and we find out what's going on in each other's lives, and the ability to look at each other and have the conversation. And every Christmas is, you know, my mom's birthday is right after Christmas, and we all gather face to face in Chicago, and that's the personal side of it, where we get to see everybody's kids and their grandkids and great grandkids now because we've got a really big family. On top of that, we used to, and we haven't for about 10 years, have what we call the Depker family reunion, which was in Northwest Ohio, my mom's side of the family. Everybody got together once a year, and that was massive. But it only worked really well when it was well organized.
Yeah.
Because when you just get people showing up, it's like everybody just kind of sits at their own table. Yeah. What you got to have is experiences. And my father actually led games. He led, you know, getting everybody together to do things, to play baseball, and organize the thing so that everybody's playing together and everybody's watching together. And it was really fun. So on the reunion side, I love that. I love the Zoom calls. I love the family reunions.
Okay, you know? So your Zoom call is just with your SIBs.
Just my SIBs.
Okay,
yeah,
and then the family reunion is great. And you made the comment that I can see how the SIB conversation is like a reunion for a high school because you're reminiscing.
Oh, yeah.
However, when you're in front of your family and other generations, I believe those stories take on a different light because it's a legacy building thing, because you're passing on stories of when your SIBs were all little kids and now their kids and great and grandkids are hearing all this stuff to then have those stories go into the future, which is very different than a high school situation. You don't have that legacy component within high school.
But think of what your high school, and I think this is the big difference between the high school reunion and the family reunion. And it's the relational component. It's kids and grandkids. Imagine what your conversation would be like at your high school reunion if you brought your kids and grandkids. Because it's so much less in that moment about reliving the locker room in 10th grade, and so much more about, look at my people. These are my grandkids, right? There's a different light and purpose on your face. And so I want to suggest that that's the glory of potentially a family reunion is you're sharing back and forth this constant generational relationship of these are my kids, my grandkids. I'm so grateful to my uncle, who built into me after my dad passed, my Uncle Tom, and that was a very short-lived experience. I didn't appreciate it, and if he were still alive today and we were to go to family reunions, I would have a lot of outward appreciation around and about him, and everybody would know it and feel it. And so I think in that regard, that's the beauty in the high intensity of what could be a family reunion. Now, let me tell you one of the reasons why I don't think it's that intense all the time. The best family reunions are on at least 5-year cycles or 1-year cycles potentially, and you've got a monthly sibling Zoom call. And so I think that it's easy to take those situations for granted, and you just get into a rhythm of we're just here hanging out. But man, if you do live in a situation where your family gets together on the regs, celebrate that, man. I mean, really embrace that generational opportunity.
Totally agree. I mean, it's a life journey conversation that you're having with those. Where are you in your life? You've got your grandkids, the great grandkids, and all that stuff. It's a great thing. I wish we had on our side of the family. We have pockets of family gatherings, but it's not a big total family gathering. And we did that on my side of the family years ago. Would love to do it again. Once you lose that generation, like my parents, because then there's the reason to get everybody together, because that's another part of family reunions. Hey, your Uncle George is, 97 years old. This could be his last year. Let's all get together. And there's the reason for this whole group of all these people to come together to then, as you're talking about, talk to somebody to say thank you, appreciate for what they've been in the family. And now I get to touch base with all my cousins and all that kind of stuff. But then once those go away, then it's up to the sibs to do it. But then now you become the parents. So now you're doing it within only your silo of parents, and it's very few that you would get together as a total family because that common thing is gone then.
That's the way the family trees work, though, I guess, right?
It's life.
Right. That is exactly what happened to our family. I said about 10 years ago we stopped doing this giant family reunion because every one of those families became so big that it was everything they could do to get their own family reunion together, which they ended up doing. And I just heard about now it would have been for us the Tesman family reunion, right. And every one of those is massive. We've got on my mom's side of the family 60 first cousins.
Yeah.
One side, and every one of those have now stretched out. And I remember the last big family reunion you had, we took individual pictures of every family, and it was hundreds of people there.
That's cool.
Hundreds. It is that big. And it just became practical to do it within your own family. But there's a part of me that wants to bring that back again, to get what can you do, to bring them, because I believe in that. The legacy thought. I love the storytelling, and there's so many, but there's so many new stories that have come up that you want to talk about. You're smiling.
Well, there are events that bring them all together, and unfortunately, it's the passing of a family member.
You
don't call it a reunion, a family reunion. You call it a funeral.
Yep.
And those are the
how
moments.
Many funerals have you been into that has been a pseudo celebration family reunion?
Well, I can't talk about other people, but I make it a point that people that have touched my life, and either let them be the son of the person that died or let them be my aunt or my uncle or my cousin. If I can get there, that I don't have another obligation, I'm there. Just because funerals to me is just such a witness of a person and what they meant in relationship to everybody sitting in that particular room. You don't hear about all the things that we've talked about in the
Right.
past, our accomplishments. We talk about the relationship. We talk about the fun stories. We're passing more stories on to other generations to hear of this person and what they meant to them. And the funerals, even though they are a very difficult time at times based upon the circumstances, but to me, it is just such a great experience in order to be together with friends and family, celebrating a person's life and a person's love. And that's a reunion.
But I'm going to be honest with you. I struggle with that. I want to make the time to go up and see these people before they die. I'm trying desperately to, and I'm thinking about going back up to Northwest Ohio where everybody is. I want to see everybody alive and tell them what I think of them then.
You got to do that.
But I agree. I think funerals become this time when you get to celebrate somebody's life and pass those stories on. But my heart of hearts says, Dale, get up off your butt. You're retired now or redirected. Make getting to that town to see all those cousins you used to hang out with before you meet them at a funeral.
Instead of sending flowers to their funeral, take them flowers while they're still alive.
Yes. Have a beer with them.
Exactly. So with the time that you have, you can do a little inventory of those people that, wow, they're all here. I'm going to get in my car and do a bit of a road trip, and I want to see them alive, and I want to celebrate and tell those stories with them, because I don't want to be the guy that, and it happens all the time, shows up at the funeral. I haven't seen you guys in 10 years.
In free-form fashion, let me throw you a little clip from YouTube. Do you remember the Andy Bernhardt, whatever it was, from The Office?
Yeah.
Talking about the good old days. Have you heard that clip?
I have not. I can't recall it. I know I've heard because I've listened to every Office episode. So.
Here it is. Check it out.
I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them. Someone should write a song about that.
I wish there was a way you could know you were in the good old days before you left them.
Yeah, that's a cool thought. But I want to come back and say that there's more good days ahead if you go and do something about it. I mean,
today can be a good old day.
Or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or the day after. Yeah. I mean, I have this little phrase that I've been using a lot lately about what if. What if? And I was intentional at the reunion, again, thinking a lot about it, reasons to go and all the stuff that we talked about earlier. But there were 4 people that I went up to and I pulled them together the first day that I was there. Brian, Beth, Mark, and John. And they were a reason for me when I went to school in college. I went to Buff State for a year. They went to Bowling Green State University. And once a trimester, I went out and visited them. And they were very welcoming. Come on in, have a good time, visit. We had a great time. And as a result of that, I decided to transfer to Bowling Green State University and went into education. And as a result of that, I ended up meeting my wife. And if I wasn't intentional to keep a reunion going to a degree right out of high school with these 4 friends that were gracious enough to say, come on and visit with us, my life would be totally different. But the point is, what if? And that's where I'm at with this connection. Out of the 85 people that we sat in that Saturday night event, which was great seeing all these people, and I really had a great time, a great conversation with them, which was another thing to bring up too. But I got 5 or 6 or 8 names and telephone numbers that it's up to me to reconnect. And I send them texts like the week after. I'm like, it was really great visiting with you. And yeah, we talked about old times, but I like what you're doing in your life, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, hey, if you're ever in Cincinnati or if I'm ever coming on up to, whatever town, I'd like to, stop in and have a beer. Would you love that? And they're like, yeah, let's stay in touch. So again, we all say the right things, and if you don't put it in your calendar at that time, it may not happen, but you still have to be deliberate and have to be intentional, because I think the good old days are still ahead, as well as being behind us.
So you are going to experience a big reunion for me when you go to the Dude Ranch next year. I've been going there 35 years. Every year we've gone there. It's been the first thing they say to us when we get there is welcome home. You're going to get to experience that because there are families that keep coming the same week or the same part of the year, every year, over and over again. And the stories you're going to hear, mostly about my inadequacy of being able to ride a horse or anything else I do out there, it's good. But that legacy is starting to move forward, and you're going to get to experience that. But you stepped out because your wife was really interested in kind of horsemen and riding horses in the Montana Rockies. You made that step. You're stepping into my reunion. That's a big kind of a family. It is now a family reunion for us because my boys and Fran's family, they're all going to be there, and they're going to be stories flying left and right while you're there. But I'm kind of fascinated by the what if part of that is stepping out to do that.
Yep.
More recently, I know a couple of people in Chicago that I went to college with, and I mentioned college is more reunion for me. I was able to step out this year and meet one of my classmates from the University of Illinois who got me in touch with everybody else. And we made the commitment to all meet like up at their cabin. Hasn't happened yet. And my question to you, Curt, is with these people, the 5 or 6 people that you really did make that connection with, because coming away from a lot of great experiences, I always come away with names and I'm going to keep up with all these people. And it's like what we experience when we leave work. It's like these people are so close. I got these names. These are people. How is it going?
It's going fine. I mean, it's been 3 weeks. All right. So I don't want to be in there. I don't want to be texting them every other week because that might be a little too much too fast. But I know of people that are doing things at certain times of the year. And I know that I travel through certain parts where people are. Like, for example, I'm heading back to Buffalo in a couple of weeks. And I was just thinking I think I'll call up Mike. And, hey, Mike Dorfler, hey, you want to go out and have a beer? And beforehand, I didn't know how to connect with them. But I'm going to do that. So you got to be intentional about it. You got to step out and be able to do some things with it. You have to be open to new experiences. And I know that's hard for some people. It's very easy for me. I love to try new things and to be exposed to new things. I can see Jackie rolling her eyes right now. Yeah, some things I don't do too well, but I'm sorry for that. But
he's talking to you, Jackie.
But I'm trying.
It's a public apology. Yeah. We like those.
I'm a work in progress, honey, and you know it. But also it gives us an opportunity to find out, like-minded situations too. And as we talked about earlier about the things that could be not as developed when we're in high school, I talked about identity and I talked about relationship development. I talked about personal experiences that you had in high school. But now that we're older and we know who we are and we have accomplished a life that we're living, and, there's no do-backs. I am what I am. Now it's like those people that were important in my life when I was younger, there's another opportunity for another relationship because now we're mature enough in order to have conversations and to decide how far we want to go with this and to what extent. There might be some of these guys that I mentioned that I only see maybe once a year, but there might be other people that I might be calling on the phone once a month. We'll see how it goes. I hope it happens. But again, it's not necessarily always a two-way street because I can't control what anybody else is going to do. Right. But if I put forth an effort and if it's meant to be, it'll happen.
So help us make application to this topic to the listeners. Let me start the insight like this. Dear listener, while you've been listening to this, somebody has come to mind. Maybe a few somebodies. Do it. Call them. Find them on Facebook. Reach out to them. LinkedIn, the Yellow Pages, whatever. However you can find them. If you don't have their number, do it. Go make that connection. Get them out for a cup of coffee or a beer. See how they're doing.
And there are benefits to all this that we understand now being adults. All right. First of all, there's you're strengthening a relationship by doing that, because if there was nothing and if you make a phone call, well, you're starting the positive trend, right? Next thing, it's a genuine personal interaction. And I saw another article today. An NFL player took his life this week. And his his college coach was talking about put the phones down, talk to somebody, look at them face to face, and enjoy the personal experience with them. And I think we need to do more of that as opposed to relying on social media. And I'm not saying that your Zoom thing is great, because that's covering miles, and that's beautiful. And you gave me ideas to do some things about that, and I'm going to do that.
But get your nose out of your own phone.
Exactly. But you have, it's not, it could be just a phone conversation. Maybe it starts out as a text conversation, but hopefully it goes to a voice, and hopefully it goes to face. And
it does, because when we reconnect on a monthly or every other monthly basis, on the Zoom, I will say that there are then other connections that are being made. I know my one sister who was going to France had questions for me, and we took it offline, and all of a sudden we had that offline conversation. And I don't think that would have happened, had we not. But I think the point of the relation, I'm 100% behind. I would look forward to reconnecting with everybody face to face for my mom's birthday around Christmas. But now it's not trying to pick up after a year. It's like we've been connecting every month or so, and it's a much better rolling experience when we all get together, because we kind of know what's going on. We want the updates.
Yeah. I like what you said, Adam, that sort of challenged all of us, me included, that let's go do something about it. I mean, whether it was a good time or a bad time in high school, college, family, I'm sure there are people within those situations that you probably haven't talked to as much as you'd like to. And what if they pick up the phone and all of a sudden you're leaning into your next best part of your life with that particular person? But it's up to you to be deliberate and intentional about doing it. I mean, it's sort of another reunion that we really didn't talk about that reinforces that. People in the military.
Yeah.
Yep.
Think about those reunions. Here you got the Marine Corps that's going to be celebrating their 250th year anniversary. And I talked to some guys in our Bible study the other day who are Marines, and I asked them about reunions for them. And they're like, oh, man, that's my second family.
Yeah.
And I'm like, tell me about it. He says, there's a bond between us that I don't even have with my own family, because it's a different situation. And, military, kudos.
Yeah, military first responders, all of that.
My goodness.
The brotherhood, the bond.
Oh, my gosh. Mm-hmm. The things that they've seen, the things that they've done. I've got your six, always. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, and I never served. All right? But I'm sure we have those same people in our walks of life, whatever our walks of life are. But be intentional. Be deliberate.
Go after it.
And when you get an invitation to come back, to sort of go down memory lane, hopefully you think about it in a different way than what you were then to who you are now, and say, hey, let's give it a shot, because what if?
And we know how healthy it is to make those connections. The stats
keeps you young.
All over. Well, it's what you need in community, but it is the exercise of stepping out, that you have to do in your redirected life.
And thanks for joining us on the Redirect Podcast.
We'd like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the 1819 Innovation Lab at the University of Cincinnati for their incredible support and partnership making this show possible. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can find more of our content on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as Instagram. Have questions or want to connect? Drop us a line at info@redirect-u.com. We'd love to hear from you. Remember, there's purpose in your life, so find it and go do something about it.
Hey, I've got one more comment. The Redirect Podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We engage in an open, honest conversations about personal growth, life transitions, and the lessons we've learned through our own experiences. While we speak as experts in our own lives, we are not licensed therapists, medical professionals, or certified coaches. The content shared on the Redirect podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of qualified professionals for any physical, mental, or emotional concerns that you may have. We're grateful to share this space with you and hope that our stories inspire reflection and connection. If you're in need of more support, we encourage you to connect with a trusted professional who can help.